Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to a moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Up in just a few minutes, we have our innovation and tech segment brought to you by Caldwell Soames and OGPay.com. And today we're featuring Lamia Kamel, Egypt's top branding expert, founder of the Mega Narrative Summit, and the PR firm CC Plus News. Impressively, she's also the founder of Flair Magazine Egypt. Today, she's joined by our regular contributor, Paul Caldwell, chairman and CEO of Caldwell Soames. And today, we're chatting about the mass adoption of digital payments across Egypt and the Middle East and its direct effect on American tourism. Now, in a recent reference in Business Monthly, the journal of the American Chamber of Commerce in Egypt, in the region, digital payments are booming. MasterCard's new payment index flagship statistic is that in 2021, 88% of Egyptian consumers have used at least one emerging payment method. Meanwhile, 15% indicated they used less cash. The bottom line is that understanding international digital payment trends is essential for local players to capitalize on the country's dynamic, young, tech-savvy consumers. Egypt is a fertile ground for all that is innovation and digital. Consumers in Egypt are adopting different payment options and discovering more of the digital economy's benefits. Adam Jones, who is MasterCard's country general manager, said Egypt received 11.7 million tourists in 2022, and that was up from 8 million back in 2021, marking a 46% increase. Now, Egypt's tourism revenues jumped by close to 26% during the second half of 2022 to a record of $7.3 billion. Now, according to recent data published by the Central Bank of Egypt, these numbers are only going to be increasing. Welcoming now to the show are my experts at hand, Lamia Kamel and Paul Caldwell. Welcome, my friends.
Hi, Zen.
Hello, Zen. Hello, Paul.
Lamia, let's start with you. So let's chat digital payments, Lamia. When it comes to lucrative investments, the opportunities across all parts of Egypt's digital economy are essentially undeniable. The Ministry of Communication and Information Technology said on its website, objectives entail developing the ICT, which is the Information and Communications Technology infrastructure, fostering digital inclusion, achieving the transition to a knowledge-based economy, fighting corruption, ensuring cybersecurity, and promoting Egypt's position at the regional and international levels. They seem to be really promoting the digital economy. Tell me, Lamia, how has the mass adoption of digital payments across Egypt and the Middle East impacted the tourism industry in your country?
Well, first, your recognition of the penetration rates of digital transformation in Egypt is pretty accurate. There has been this adoption by the government and their commitment to ensuring that a big part of attracting investment and growing the economy is through digitizing this economy and ensuring that payments are done with high security and digitally and with high amount of speed and trust. And while doing so, I'd like to share with you that 64% of Egyptians in 2022, through record reports, 64% of Egyptians have increased their digital usage and their payment solutions to be able to do more of those transactions digitally. And we expect, in a population of 120 million people, we expect that by the year 2025, which is coming up very soon in 2 years, we will have around 59 million people adopting e-payments and digital payment solutions. So there is this huge transformation. There's this huge speed, and it started off before COVID, but COVID really, really impacted our need for this and created this whole space for us to adopt these new technologies. I would also like to tell you that the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities have adopted these payments in the pyramids, at the Citadel, at the museum, the National Museum in Tahrir, which is the biggest museum currently before the Grand Egyptian Museum. Once the Grand Egyptian Museum is opened, also the payment solutions is going to be intact over there. And also in the Upper Egypt, where most of the archaeological sites are happening in Luxor and Aswan. Also, 4 or 5 of those sites have adopted digital solutions. The U.S. tourism, the U.S. tourists come as the number between 5 and 10 top nationalities of our inbound tourism. And
It's
knowing
interesting
that,
because when you go back, and I want to touch on this and just go to piggyback off something that I'm going to ask Paul, but to your point, an indispensable part of any digital economy is the ability to securely and conveniently process payments. And given the key role digitalization plays in the financial lives of more and more of the world's population, electronic payments are at the epicenter of this transformation. And so for travel, and especially for Egypt, this is essential. Now I'm going to sway back to Paul here. Paul, welcome back, my friend.
Glad to be here, Zen.
So this is exactly right up your alley, this conversation. So MasterCard, Paul, said nearly 35% of those using digital payments used tappable smartphone mobile wallets, 27% a digital money transfer app, and 24%, interestingly enough, QR codes. The rest of the population make payments via left field channels such as social media apps. So adoption of a broader range of digital payment methods is accelerating, in fact, in Egypt, and the technology fueling the future of payments is basically already there. To Lamia's point, consumers in Egypt are increasingly and actively using these solutions. In Egypt, Gen Z and millennials are less likely to make in-person purchases and payments, and this is really based off directly this MasterCard report, and they're proactively seeking new payment methods, with Paul, 40% of Gen Z and millennials likely to have obtained a new touch-free payment method compared to the older Gen X. So cash is becoming obsolete for the first time ever in Egyptian culture. Does this surprise you? And what do you have to say to this?
No, I think it's it's less of an innovation at this point because that's kind of baked into everything. And it's less of a disruptor as well because it's already there and it's not really disrupting. I think where the big change is in the transformation of how people think about how they use their money in different ways. I mean, you can be online and you can pay for things and touchless and all of that and whatever, but you cannot eat dinner over the computer. I mean, it just can't feed you. You have to still go to a restaurant or buy some food at the grocery or whatever, make the food, or someone has to make it for you. So there's still this in-person component to this. I just see it everywhere. In our fund, we're looking at Middle East, North Africa. We call it our MENA strategy. We're in acquisition mode right now for fintech companies. We've acquired a company that has a lot of North Africa presence and Africa presence with the World Bank. The requirements here are really specific because there are certain things around what is called origination. There are certain things around the transactions, the type of the transactions. And then there's all kinds of cross-border commerce that goes on. If you looked at the number of people that are carrying a Visa card from the United States or Europe or whatever, they go to Egypt and they use that card, and then they have to have foreign transaction fees. Digital can do away with foreign transaction fees. So fee-based income on the vendor side, on the merchant side, on the MasterCard, Visa, everybody is shifting. It's transforming. It's in the back office. It's different than it used to be. So where I see the convergence and the transformation, I should say, is in the convergence of apps like the OGPay app that you're familiar with, Zen, that actually has the QR codes, the wallet-to-wallet payments that's off the rail. So you can have both closed loop and open loop systems operating within one environment. So you still have your cards, can still do your card processing and your merchant services and so forth, but you can also have wallet-to-wallet so that if I was here and my parents were in Egypt and I wanted to send them some money, I could just do it wallet to wallet for free, no cost. And that's a transformation for people that may otherwise have been going to like a Western Union or something and sending that money when they get their paycheck and have to pay a fee for that. When they can send that money and it's free, and then those people can use that money straight away, it transforms how people think about how they use their money.
That's amazing. And OGPay is a super app as we know it because it's multilingual, multi-currency, multi-use, multifunctional. It's very integrated, very safe, FDIC insured. I mean, that's why I proudly endorse and back it. Lamia, the Egyptian government took numerous measures to stimulate the travel sector, including deciding back in January to allow 180 nationalities to obtain tourist visas on arrival to Egypt. Of course, there's a little bit of caveats to that, but in general, that was the point. And the Ministry of Transport also launched in September its first ever online platform to regulate the entry of yacht trips into the country as part of a newly developed strategy to leverage the country's unique strategical geographic location and long coastal lines, of course. Now, have there been any challenges or barriers to the mass adoption of digital payments in the tourism sector? And if so, how are they being addressed? I mean, what are Egypt's biggest challenges at the moment meeting tourist demands and satisfaction?
As the general challenges of tourism, which is basically ensuring that the traveler has the right experience while he's at the country. So although Egypt has this massive archaeological sites between Cairo, between Giza, the pyramids, and in the beach areas in Upper Egypt, where all the archaeological sites of the in Luxor and in the temples. But still, the tourists wouldn't just come to see the archaeological sites or just to be at the beach. They want an overall experience. They want to be able to walk freely. They want to be able to have trust in the system. They want to be able to rely on their payment methods, that they're not going to be ripped off, that they're not going to be cheated on anything, that they're going to get the right service, that they're going to get the right products. And according to research, for example, we noted that most travelers and tourists are looking for e-payments for shopping purposes, for restaurants, and for bookings. These are the major transactions that are happening online when it comes to tourism. So you want to make sure that first, that they trust the method, that they go to the right shopping place to buy what they're looking for, and that whatever restaurant that they go to enjoy their experience overall, is that they are able to make those payments, because these are the locations where tourists want to exercise freedom. They want to exercise.
And promoting tourism has gained further urgency now more than ever in Egypt because of the global economic crisis that we were faced not long ago, which has put pressure on the local currency and caused Egypt to face an actual shortage in foreign currency. So right now, travel is essential. Paul, we have about 2 minutes left, and then we're going to cut to a commercial break for extended segment. For those that you're going to want to listen to more expert talk, you're going to have to tune into our YouTube channel. But Paul, the PwC report stressed that behind the scenes processing, the plumbing of payments is changing as consumers reduce their use of cards and traditional accounts in favor of what we've been talking about, these digital wallets and smartphone apps. And the document attributed the transition to regulators forcing the industry to strengthen or build up domestic infrastructure for payments. And that entices digital payment providers to outsource their infrastructure to cloud developers. This very survey accompanying the report found 80% of financial services organizations expect to have outsourced such infrastructures by the year 2025, which is just around the corner. That makes the interoperability of e-wallets among local and overseas banks and non-bank operators essential, but not easy to achieve. What is the resolution here with interoperability?
Well, interoperability is a function of necessity. It's kind of like necessity drives invention, is a saying, right? I think that it also, for tourism, Zen, is still a good example if we stay on tourism. There needs to be other tech-based, fintech-based solutions operating in a market. An example might be the public transportation system, for example, in a country. If that was enabled to where you just could scan your phone when you step on the bus and it automatically paid it, or it scanned a code and it paid it from your wallet to your wallet, completely bypassing all the Visa, MasterCard, all the credit card rails, and just was a wallet-to-wallet transaction with the city and the consumer. That bus, the city owns the bus, the consumer gets on the bus, scans it, and there's no fees whatsoever. The city doesn't have to pay a merchant processing fee to MasterCard or Visa in that regard. They simply just do the transaction with their customer, which is the bus rider. Now, that same technology is the technology that would be operating in the tourist sector, at the hotels, at the vendors, little QR codes on the little kiosks of the lady that makes the little gadgets or the blankets. And you can just scan it and boom, you pay her. She's happy. She doesn't have to pay
She
all
would
those
be
fees.
so happy.
She doesn't have to pay those fees. It's 2%, 2.9, 1.5 card present, these kinds of things. So this is why you see the big card merchant processing companies like Fiserv, for example, and you see the Visas and the MasterCards of the world. You're seeing major shifts. Union Pay, you're seeing shifts. You're seeing movement around Alipay around the world, more deeply integrated everywhere. China has the Bridge and Roads, the BRI initiative going on. You see that they're bringing their companies in there as part of those solutions for collecting tolls and things like that on those bridges and those roads. So there's a ton going on behind the scenes. I completely agree with the PwC conclusions. I'm familiar with the report you're referencing. I just think it's going to get faster and faster, but I think it all comes down to success is rooted in being able to transform how people think about how they do something that matters to them.
I love it. When are you writing your book?
If you can do that, then I think you have something really great to talk about.
You are incredible. I love your commentary. Don't move a muscle, guys. I'm going to cut to a commercial break. You definitely have to check out Paul Caldwell and Lamia Kamel. You can go directly on Lamia's website. You can go to at Narrative Summit on the web, at CC Plus News, at Flair Magazine. You can go directly to cc-plus.com. And again, OGPay.com for all your fintech needs. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. Don't move a muscle. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Caldwell Soames Incorporated, investing globally in transformative businesses like Original Digital Corporation, or ODC. ODC develops advanced consumer and commercial fintech solutions such as OGPay, which will transform the way you manage your money. From sending and receiving money globally for free, paying for goods and services in person and online, pay bills, buy and sell digital currencies, all while earning interest. OGPay is easy to set up, FDIC insured, and your information is secured. Check out OGPay.com.
Welcome back, beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcoming back to our innovation and tech segment is the incredible Lamia Kamel and our dear friend and returning contributor, Paul Caldwell. Welcome back, my friends.
Hi, Zen.
Hi, Zen again.
Okay, so we just ended a question about what the resolution here was. Paul answered it very eloquently. And to piggyback off of what you were just saying, Paul, and again, this is our extended segment. You can check us out on our YouTube channel directly on all OTT and OTA platforms. But to address what you were just talking about, it left me thinking that like central banks acknowledge, of course, this notable shift away from conventional banking and are developing their own versions of instant online payment apps, to your point. And in addition to, I was reading Egypt's InstaPay app, the Federal Reserve created FedNow, which is a kind of like the next hybrid, next generation of InstaPay. But it was interesting that's where we're headed right now with wallet to wallet. Now, I have a combo question for both of you. So, Lamia, we'll start with you. So the next step for digital payment solutions is to use artificial intelligence to process transactions. And those systems would likely be in the industrial, farming, wholesale trade, and construction sectors first. Webster of Market Platform Dynamics noted such payment platforms would be used primarily to sort of quote unquote digitize interactions with consumers and allow businesses to automate their payable and receivable processes. Lamia, are there any plans to expand digital payment options beyond traditional methods such as mobile wallets or contactless payments, leveraging artificial intelligence to further enhance the tourist experience in Egypt that you know of?
In 2022, I was pleasantly surprised when I heard that for every 100,000 people, 46,000 people had wallets. And the penetration rate is increasing to 67% in 2021 and expected to go beyond up until 2025. With these numbers and the fact that 50% of the Egyptian population is less than 30 years old, coupled with the fact that the country is paying a lot of attention to the SDGs, one of which is women empowerment, women employment, innovation. there is a huge amount of pressure right now to not just adopt these technologies, which, as Paul very eloquently said, they're no longer disruptors. I mean, they're there, but to have them transform the economy. And a big part of that transformation is to embed it in key industries like agriculture, like like manufacturing, and AI is on the rise. We have all these like labs taking place, and all these young people, and even in academia, we have a lot of private sector universities adopting these sciences, and they want to penetrate that realm and get into that space, because it doesn't just serve the youth, which is more than 50% of the population and supports the SDGs. They found that this is the recipe for the country to get more investment, to get more interest. Applications and companies like Paul's, the reason why they got into Egypt is because of this dynamic of this young population, of them eager to know more. And I was also again surprised. I always thought that education has a lot to do with it. And I know that we have a huge illiteracy rate in Egypt, which the country is currently working on. But despite of that, academics is not exactly tied up to this technology adoption. You don't have to be fully educated. You don't have to be a grad of university to be able to adopt these technologies. You just have to have a phone, understand the buttons, understand what's going on, and you know,
Yeah,
the prerequisites have
self-explanatory.
become so low, so minimal, so simple, and it became so mainstream. And as you said, the next step is AI, and it's not just in banking, and it's not just in tourism, but also in agriculture. And I want to draw the attention that in agriculture there is this merge between agriculture and tourism, because we have what we call ecotourism. And in ecotourism, you're highlighting the community, and you're highlighting environmental friendly agriculture. And there are a lot of these villages taking place right now in Upper Egypt, where entrepreneurs and investors are keen on merging both industries, both tourism and agriculture, to create this mega product, eco-friendly villages. And we've worked with businesses on this idea. And as you said, AI would be something very crucial in making this magnify and amplify its impact.
Oh, I can totally see how passionate you are about talking about your ministry and tourism and everything Egypt. You are cut out for the work that you do. Paul, how do you see the role of digital payments and artificial intelligence evolving in the future of tourism, both in Egypt and across the Middle East, but more in general abroad, in terms of where do we see the actual use case?
Well, frankly, I think we're at the very beginning of the applications of artificial intelligence. Again, we're pretty much in that innovation phase, and some are showing up as more disruptive than others, but very few have actually transformed anything, frankly, at this point. So we have to get to that point. But I think in getting there, there's a lot to be said. And AI is a big word right now. I mean, it's big. It's big in the markets. It's big in the news. It's big everywhere. We're talking about it today. So it's big everywhere as a thing. But I'm not quite sure anyone knows how to actually make that thing matter as much as it ultimately will 10, 15, 20 years ago. Just like 20 years ago, we didn't have any idea how mobility or our mobile phones would actually impact our day, or how we would transform how we work with information through our phones. So I think it's that kind of a thing. So that said, it's not a big thing. It actually comes down to the individual. And it's spot on to say that, look, you don't have to have financial literacy is one thing. I have a degree of financial literacy. We all do have different degrees of financial literacy. Some of us understand financial literacy at levels that people will never want or need to. So it really comes down to what you need. And as a consumer with a mobile app on your phone, you don't need to understand derivatives and overlays and markets and arbitrage and spreads and FX and all that. The technology should give you the benefit of all of that working in your favor. And it's all you need to do is have a degree of financial literacy that allows you to use it and understand it at a basic level, so it makes your life better. And that's really the key to the whole thing. So from an AI perspective, I think the first AI driven technologies in fintech that are going to really matter are in the customer service and the customer relationship. I think it's at the experiential level, the experience that individual person has.
And of course,
Because
data breaches too, I would assume that they'll
yeah,
be able
because
to track that much better.
AI, yeah, and they're already doing that. Chainalysis, we have an
Right.
integration with Chainalysis. Chainalysis does that in the crypto space. But yes, digital payments, all of that. It's just a matter of fact, I think, that when you can create an artificial intelligence platform that makes your customer service better, makes your IT department smarter, your customer service department more effective. And it's not getting rid of the people. It's not displacing the people. It's more effectively deploying them for better solutions for the consumer.
Interesting. Yeah. It's funny you said that. I interviewed Chris Mattman yesterday, and he is NASA's Chief Innovation Technology Officer. And we were talking about, the tons of applications and use cases, especially of AI. It was mainly about robotics. But when we talked about data, interestingly enough, he had a 23-year career inventing the most downloadable software on the planet. He created a technology that powers all the data systems in the industry called TICA. And that's the digital babblefish. It's the key technology that solved the Panama Papers and won the Pulitzer Prize in journalism back in 2017. And of course, for those listening, again, I'm going to reiterate it, but the Panama Papers were 11.5 million leaked documents that were published in April of 2016. And the papers detail financial and attorney-client information for more than 250,000 offshore entities. But it was interesting when we talked about how AI can monitor the data access and usage patterns to identify these unusual patterns that may indicate these data breaches, and of course, alert these data managers. But when we started talking privacy, one of my questions, and I'd love to ask you this, is the potential misuse or unauthorized access to this data can result in significant breaches of privacy and personal security, because at that point, AI systems often rely on collecting and analyzing vast amounts of personal data, which raises concerns about privacy. So I was like, well, where are we headed there? And I think that's a valid concern.
Yeah, I mean, insurance companies have been doing this for a long time. Banks have been doing this for a long time. People think when they apply for a loan or they apply for insurance that it's all just on the application they fill out. Somebody looks at it and says, "Okay, here's your loan, here's your insurance." There are database, there's systems that all of that is run against. Abstracts can be pulled from the US from the IRS. You can pull an abstract and get an abstract of anybody's tax return that's trying to apply for something. I mean, these are the kinds of things that are already being done in an automated way, and there are already 20 years of machine learning technologies behind a lot of this, that what we're now calling artificial intelligence. So it's not that it's just somebody just plopped it down and said, "Oh, now we have this thing called AI."
Yeah,
I mean, that's not how it's been. It's really been a series of things over the last 50 years that have been evolving really since the end of World War II. If one were to go back and study it, you'll find that. And this is this thing we call now artificial intelligence. It's AI is only 2 letters, but it's a really big discussion. So I think you're right. I think he's spot on with that. And I mean, certainly security is a big deal. And I think that's going to also drive policy too, because I mean, look at PCI policy, DS3 policies in Europe, and PCI requirements, level 1, 2, 3 in the United States. When you look at all of that, you say, well, geez, now what are the governments going to do as far as security related to AI applications having access to a particular data set? How's that going to be treated?
Yeah, that's a whole different segment.
It's a big conversation.
It's a big conversation. Yes. Well, you are our regular contributor, Paul, so we will be having more of these conversations. And now that we've gotten acclimated with the beautiful and the talented Lamia, we'll be using her often as well for our foreign exchange interviews. Why not? All right. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Lamia. It was a pleasure chatting with you today. Thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure, Zen.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. It's always amazing. You have this great energy, and you know how to integrate things really well between technology and tourism. And I think this is what the world really needs: this kind of engagement, this kind of dialogues, and mixing industries together and coming up with this big picture where everybody has a role. So thank you
Yes,
for that.
edutainment is extremely important. Thank you so much, friends. Guys, listen, travel is being made really easy and safely at the forefront of the government's ensuring that people want to come to Egypt. And they've taken numerous measures to stimulate the sector. And they've taken tons and tons of steps to make sure that everyone is comfy and everyone is happy when they visit Egypt. I have tons of friends there. The Ministry of Transport also launched in September, like I said earlier, its first ever online platform to regulate the entry of yacht trips. And I know a lot of you listening out there have yachts and mega yachts. A lot of my friends are asking these questions. So yes, they have a newly developed strategy to leverage the country's unique strategic location and their beautiful coastal lines. Definitely check out CCP Plus News on the gram, Flair Magazine, Flair Magazine Egypt, and you can go directly to cc-plus.com, or you could head to ogpay.com. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.